Welcome everybody to the Learn Alpha podcast. I'm Van.
I'm Derek.
And we'd like to welcome Mr. Curtis Spears to the podcast today.
Thanks, guys. Glad to be here. I appreciate the invite.
So you're a husband, dad, dog dad, retired Leo, and you are my Facebook meme master.
Well, it's a lot of fun. You can make somebody smile. It doesn't have to be all serious. It doesn't always have to be politics, which some of mine are politics, I will say. But somebody open that thing up and just get a chuckle out of something. That's what matters.
Know that I do every day. So out of you and your wife, who has the most like meme cloud around your house? Because she does too.
I would probably say me. When you're on your third Facebook account because they permanently deleted two of them, you're doing something right, brother.
Well, who are you, man?
Curtis Spears. Curtis Spears Jr. Born and raised there in St. Martin. It was North Biloxi whenever I was growing up. D'Iberville wasn't all fancy in the city back then. It was just D'Iberville and St. Martin, and we fought each other in school. And then if anybody messed with any of us, it was North Biloxi as one against the world. So
right on.
Went to school at St. Martin High School, first grade through 12th grade. Only took me 12 years. Didn't take me any longer either. Shocking.
Nice.
But growing up, I've family. Had a dad was a construction superintendent for Fletcher Construction in Pascagoula, and then my other part of my family was owned a seafood factory in Biloxi, north end of Crawford Street, Dunaway Seafood. So I learned how to work young, probably 10 years old. Went to work every summer, every spring break, working there. Then when I got old enough and into construction with my dad, basically it taught me something very important. It taught me if I had a career back then, this is obviously pre-casino, this is the 80s, I'm an 80s kid, that I had a few choices. I could either go into construction, I could go to work at Ingalls, I could work on a shrimp boat, which are all noble trades, hard-working trades.
Very.
I wanted to raise a family young, and there was this Keesler Air Force Base sitting right there in Biloxi, and I met a couple guys, worked in the hospital there. And my junior year, I actually signed up, my junior year of high school, I signed up a year before I ever graduated. And 1988, off I went. San Antonio for a few weeks, and then stationed in Wichita Falls, Texas, becoming a biomedical electronics technician.
Wow, that's a big jump. So, like, you didn't follow any family tradition, joining the Air Force or anything like that? That was
no, I had an uncle. My mother had some brothers that were World War II era.
Right.
And my dad, my Uncle Dwight, he was Vietnam. So there wasn't a whole lot of,
So when you made that decision, you said, this is me and I'm taking this path. You weren't following somebody else.
No, absolutely. I'm like, I want to do something that is going to be marketable after military, number one.
Right.
I want to raise a family, start out early. Obviously the United States military, not just the Air Force, they take care of their families. They take care of their soldiers, their airmen.
Right.
And so there I'm in Wichita Falls, Texas for a year-long tech school to work on x-ray machines and IV pumps and defibrillators. And June 26th of that year, I'm 18 years old with a newborn son.
Wow.
Just me and her, me and my wife, my first wife. And Mom and Daddy wasn't there. You had to lean on yourselves, and you had to lean on what you would, learn growing up. And like I said, by all means, military will take care of their families. But fast forward a year later, I was lucky enough to get stationed there at Keesler. It was really nice. It was right back at home.
Yeah.
1990, my daughter was born. This first little desert thing called Desert Shield hit, 91. And here I am shipped off to England. I didn't go over to the sandpit. I went to England and spent a deployment over there. Came back shortly after. That was a 3-4 month deployment. And about 4 months later, I got orders back to England. So packed up the family, moved to England, lived there for 4 years. Time to come back to the United States. In the Air Force, I don't know in the Marine Corps what they called it. In the Air Force, you had a dream sheet that you get to put on there with the dream places you'd love to go.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Yeah.
Mine was simple. It was Florida, anywhere in Florida, Herbert Field, MacDill, Eglin, anywhere in Florida. or the Carolinas, anywhere in the southeastern United States. Congratulations, Airman Spears, you're going to Bolling Air Force Base. I'm like, where is that? Oh, it's in Washington, D.C., and you're going to be working there and taking care of the medical clinic at the Pentagon.
Right on.
Yeah, right on. I've got a kindergarten student and a third grade.
Yeah.
And when I moved there, nearest place we could find was 30 miles south in Virginia, Dumfries, Virginia, just north of Quantico. And it was an hour and 30 minutes one way.
Wow. So back then, traffic was still crazy and all that too?
Yeah, it was way crazier. I mean, it's crazy. It's not as crazy as it is up there now. I've been back a few times. But finally, they had some base housing open up. It's actually now it's the entrance to the Redskins Stadium, or the Commander Stadium, I guess I should say. First day we move in, I go to leave the next morning, there's cops everywhere. It's in Landover. It's right on the D.C. line. And there's just these guys he's out. Somebody took him out with a gun.
Yeah.
And it's there. And I told my wife, I'm like, this is it. I told my CO that I said, I've got 1.5 years left on this enlistment. I'm going to do everything I can to take care of, my responsibilities here. But 1.5 years, you need to have somebody here to take my place. So Memorial Day 1996 was my final out date. And come home, great marketable job, biomed electronics. I knew my x-ray machines. MRI was a new technology back then. But CT, x-ray, got a job at Salida Memorial Hospital. Great job, doing the same thing, just in the civilian world, making good money. And that whole, you see these guys that they call them Inglewood's that have to drive from Waynesboro or wherever back and forth down to the coast every day. It was a 60-mile one-way trip. It was 120 miles a day I was driving. And after about 1 year, I bumped into a buddy I went to high school with that had started with this new slot machine company down here. And I realized that I could make more money working on slot machines than I could working in a hospital over there. So changed. That was, I said, 96. I come in. I've also coached youth sports, both my kids, football, softball, baseball. And when I got back here, I'd mentioned I was pre-casino when I left. Well, when I came back, this Gulf Coast was completely different. And I didn't realize I was at the foot of Oak Street until I saw the sign.
Right.
And the green lasers, was it green lasers going at the time?
Yeah, and the Dragon out there at the foot of Oak Street. And so when I come back in 96 and was coaching youth sports, St. Martin was different. Trust me, it was, I remember when there was an oak tree at the corner of Tucker Road and Big Ridge. There is no Tucker Road and Big Ridge anymore.
Right.
All the folks that worked at Ingalls parked along the side of two-way Tucker Road to ride share back and forth. And so I wanted to know what was going on with the, area my kids were going to grow up. And coaching youth sports, I was coached a guy. His name was Billy Bryant, the infamous Billy Bryant. And we become close friends. And, man, why don't you come take a ride with me one night? So got in that patrol car and ride along, and as we're going, he's like, well, we've got reserves. I'm like, reserve? What's a reserve? I'm like Air Force Reserve? He's like, no, Sheriff's Department Reserve. So you can go to the academy, you go on the weekends, a couple nights a week, and you get certified. You get a car, you get everything. You arrest people and beat the police just like I am. So that was 96 that he roped me into this. Fast forward to 2001, and again, working in gaming, working in casinos, living 6 months in Vegas in 98, living 6 months at the end of 99 in Vegas running the office. In New Jersey, going to London, setting up gaming shows, setting up Vegas gaming shows, and I just got...
You were wore out.
The
road will get you like that.
Yeah, and people say money's not everything, and it's not, because you call it taking a oath of poverty, vow of poverty. Mike Bird hired me as a topped-out deputy, making $12.70 an hour.
Nice.
But you were home every night, or close to it.
Yeah. And I was doing, it was something that I loved, something that there was a fire just driven. So I come into the Sheriff's Department. 2003, there was an opening at the narcotics unit. The former commander had went back to Pascagoula, and there was a new commander coming in, and one of the Jackson County guys was coming out. So I went to Sheriff Bird and said, look, I'd like to go to that spot. He said, we're not filling that spot. I said, okay. But if you decide to, if you'll give me 90 days, you give me 90 days, and if I'm not what you expect of me, You can put me wherever you want. I'll go catch a dog. I'll be the dog catcher. It doesn't matter. So 90 days, worked out, did a lot of undercover work, did a lot of undercover stuff in Biloxi, over in Harrison County. Their guys would come to us. We would swap out. And it was a natural for me for Biloxi because my family had a seafood factory on the point, and I grew up in Biloxi, and I knew all the streets, so they knew that I was, as I'm talking on a wire and they're listening to me, I know exactly where I'm at. I'm not going to get lost.
Right.
So if I have to call for the cavalry, they know to come get me. So that goes on to what, 2005, and August of 2005, there was a little storm that come through.
Yeah.
And our office was down in the old Coast Guard base. Derek, I know, remembers it. It was the hurricane-proof old Coast Guard station. And I've got a picture somewhere that Louis Miller and I are standing on a debris pile of rubble. That's all it is. It just totally decimated it. We were lucky enough to FEMA, we finally got a double-wide mobile home that they put in the parking lot of the Sheriff's Department. We started working again, business as usual. I was appointed the interim commander. Our commander had went back to his department, and a few months later, I was promoted to captain. I'm sorry, commander of the Narcotics Task Force, not captain. That was a long way off. But a lot of good times. This is a lot of tough late nights. This was back in mid 2000s when this whole meth lab thing exploded.
Oh, yeah. The shake and bake era.
This was pre-shake and bake.
Pre-shake and bake.
Yeah, this is pre-shake and bake. This is old bathtub dope.
Gotcha.
These are the things that a house would fill up with fumes, and you had to go to school and be certified to know to keep from blowing yourself up or someone else up. Dealing with a red phosphorus lab. If you unplug it at the wrong time, it's going to go from red phosphorus to white phosphorus, and that's So a lot of that, a lot of arrest. I've had several people that have told me I saved their lives.
Nice.
And there's been some that we couldn't save.
Yeah.
And but through that, come out of the narcotics unit, 2011. Was sent to Department of Homeland Security in Gulfport, Homeland Security Investigations, on what's called the BEST team, Border Enforcement Security Task Force, focusing on smuggling, human trafficking, marine trafficking, bulk money smuggling, anything associated with a nexus to the border that's coming in. And man, I'll tell you, did some of the coolest things that you would never do as a local police officer if you're not assigned to a unit like that.
That's wild. So, man, that's a lot. And then, what was your, as you're going through all that and you're getting different jobs and going to different parts of being in law enforcement, what was your goal? What did you wake up in the morning and say, this is my next step, this is what I want to do? Or were you already doing it?
I would say a drive. It was not necessarily a goal. My drive, wherever my drive would lead me, because I did that at Homeland Security and then come back to the Sheriff's Department. Ended up taking over CID. I tell people I've been everything but a midwife for the Sheriff's Department. Then from CID, it was captain over patrol. Took over the jail, ran that ADC for a while, and then finished back out at Homeland Security. But it was more to accomplish the task in front of me and to do it to the best of my ability, and to teach those that were working with me and beside me, to teach them what I knew, to make them better cops.
So I think you've made an important point there that I need to drive home, and you've danced all around it, telling about your story, but it's something that I think needs attention, and that's a lot of guys that we interview. There's basically two different paths that they take. One is they are driven towards their goal, like you were asking, and they have picked this, and then they do what they need to do to get there, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that some people out there are a little forlorn when they realize I don't have that goal yet. I don't know what I want to do yet. And I think what you're talking about speaks to those people, and that's, hey, I'm just going to get up today. I'm going to do the best that I can, and I'm going to let the chips fall where they may. And I think a lot of times that's probably the better route to take. In some cases, whenever you're in those in-between times where I can't do this yet, I got to get up, I got to do the best I can with today, and then people will see that, and I'll get closer to a goal later.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, it never was really mine. I never had a goal to become the commander of the Narcotics Task Force. I never had a goal to become a patrol captain, or it was just wherever
you were needed.
Wherever you need me.
Yeah.
And, you know, wherever you need me.
So in those in-between times, it's okay to just not know and do the best you can, right?
Yeah, and have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun, and like I said, impart to those that that work with you, or I hate to say for you, as a supervisor, but impart to them the knowledge that you have. Derek, we've known each other for a long time, and I think it's safe to say that that was one of my goals, was to teach these guys what I know, and I'm proud to say that even like that task force, every guy that left that task force left and got promoted back at their own department.
Mm-hmm. So, who is a big inspiration to you?
My dad was.
Yeah.
Very, very. And he was, I wouldn't say tough love, but he was one that would never tell me how proud of me he was.
Right.
To me, he would tell me I needed to work harder, but he would darn sure tell everybody else about it. And my brother-in-law is, as far as the work ethic, you work in a seafood crab shop at 13 years old, and you boil them back 4,000 pounds of crabs in one day. Yeah. That's a work ethic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 people.
That's hard work.
Yeah. And my mom too, really, inspirational, such a kind soul that would do anything in the world for anyone and never ask a thing from anybody. So,
and we talked about that before, that nucleus family, like you get the best of both worlds, from your dad and being tougher and being rougher, and your mom to having that affirmation and that kindness, because it really takes both of those to pass on to your kids, just like you were, working in law enforcement and want to pass that knowledge on to the guys underneath you, so that when they get in that position, they have as much information as they can to make the best decision they can make going forward, and we talk about it all the time, but having that mom and that dad and the relationship, and you being the representation of both of those people.
And that's when I say inspiration for family. If you want to look at a law enforcement aspect, I would say there was 3 that had a great effect on me. And it was Michael Paul Robichaud, Don Stewart, and Mike Bird. And I said to myself, if I could combine the 3 of them as a boss, as a supervisor, and all the qualities, good things that they brought to the table, I would, I'd have something. Chief Stewart was always very reserved, very quiet, and he thought about a lot of things before he did anything. Major Robichaud, you're going to mess up in law enforcement. You're going to do something, somebody's going to complain on you, you're going to get in an accident or something, and Major Robichaud would chew you up one side and down the other if you messed up. But once it was over, it was over.
Yeah, it was time to go get coffee and talk about Christmas or something,
And then
I was the recipient of a couple of those.
Yeah, trust me, I've had some of those too. And then and Sheriff Byrd was about have fun with what you're doing, really.
So going back, we covered a lot of ground there of who Curtis is and where you come from. Like, we started here at Air Force, right, as far as professional career goes, working on medical equipment, casino, then law enforcement. At what point in your life did you sit back in your chair and say, I have arrived, this is what I want to do?
It's kind of hard to say that. I mean, it's really, I thought that whenever I was running the Narcotics Task Force. I thought that whenever I was captain over patrol. I thought that whenever I was over CID. I fast forward to I retired in August of 2021. Now I'm working for an electrical company as a program manager, just something completely different. But I feel like this is now where I need to be. I've got the T-shirt, been there, done that. I don't know how you want to say that, but
I'm pretty jealous, man, because that's saying a lot. Like, being happy in the moment. That's something that people struggle with a lot.
Yeah.
And man, you're blessed to have that.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. There's not always happy times. There's not. There's
oh yeah,
absolutely not. But in the fear of the unknown, every time me changing, I'm retiring. All I've known is law enforcement for 20-something years.
Right.
Suddenly, I've got to figure out what a Generac generator does and how it works and how it powers people's houses.
But it keeps your mental your mental mind sharp because you're doing something new, and that's kind of the whole thing. You know, you had this huge career, and then now you're doing this, which you already had knowledge of, but technology changes, all these things.
And I will say that did help. A couple of things is that technical training in the Air Force, whenever I come to Lamy Electric, that helped a lot. But the other side of that was if I wouldn't have learned what I learned from discipline and Airman Leadership School in the Air Force, there's no way I could have had the career that I've got today. You'll never, I'm so, and it's opinionated, but I believe subscription, a 2-year subscription in the United States would do this world, this country a lot of good. After 2 years, if it doesn't work and you don't like it, okay, go to college, go chase your dreams. But it made me grow up quickly.
I think that'd be a great thing, man, but our society is so broken right now. It is, I mean,
that's the reason I say that.
Yeah, but it goes back to the dad and the mom, and you walking away with a piece of both of them. Mm-hmm. You know, spiritually, physically, like all those things. That doesn't happen a lot in our society today.
No, we've all seen it. You see it, and you've seen the decline of the nuclear family. How do we fix that? I don't know. I have some opinions. A lot of them has to do with if folks would get together and spend more time together at church, worship.
Amen.
And I'm not in no way, shape, or form a religious, super religious person. I am not. But I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and that's a big part of morals and values that we're lacking in the United States of America right now.
Our country was founded on them.
Yes. And
now it seems like politicians turn a blind eye to that and want to preach a different thing. But I mean, it goes back to something I said the other day to somebody, is you just cannot force life sometimes. No matter how much you want to try and just make this one thing happen, you may be able to make it happen, but you're not going to feel good about it. You're not going to gain anything from it. But that's kind of like where our country is, and it's pretty disheartening sometimes.
Well, I think that most of our media is focusing on our differences.
Yeah.
And I think regardless of how you believe or how I believe or the color of our skin or any of that other kind of stuff, if we just sit down and have a conversation with somebody, we'll find some common ground there. And I think that not enough of that's being said, and that if we focus more on where we're similar, then our disagreements won't be so big. And I think that, you know, you were talking about the military. I think that's what the military does very well, is they throw a bunch of people from a bunch of different places that are a bunch of different colors in one box and shake it up and tell you all to work together. And I think that's pretty awesome, and we probably should do that more.
Well, that's why most of them are so successful.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
You get rid of those labels, and you are a human. You are a soldier just like me. Mm-hmm. You are a law enforcement officer just like me. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter who you are, where you came from, what color you are. Our blood's red, baby.
Yep, I agree 100%, and I agree with what you said about with the media. Seems to be they perpetuate turning difference of opinions against each other instead of trying to find a common ground. Is there a way we could have a common ground in the Senate and the House now? Absolutely, but as long as they continue to beat this drum on both ends of the aisle,
it's profitable for them. That's why they do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you make a certain amount of money every year being in Congress, but all the trading and everything that they do is millions upon millions of dollars a year. Mm-hmm. And it's weird. We have the ability to change it, but the one thing I always remind people of is we can only vote for somebody who's actually running.
Yeah. And you can't.
If there's only two people to choose from out of 400,000, whatever your district is, what do? You always pick the lesser of two evils, and even that's not good enough.
Well, and that's the other part I was going to say. Not only that, if you don't vote, you can't have a voice. Don't complain about who's president or who's governor if you're not voting. That's your civic duty. That's your civic right.
So if you were just shifting gears a little bit, if you were talking to a person like yourself that's going in the Air Force or trying to pick a career at 18 years old, if you could give that person some advice, what would that be?
Pay attention to, there's a reason you've chosen this, and make the best of it. Pay attention and learn from your experience. Don't just float through life and not understand what's going on around you. Just
Starting to see a pattern here. It's called do the best you can in the moment that you have.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I may be a ditch digger, but if I'm a ditch digger, I want to be the best one that I could possibly be.
Right.
You know.
And that's kind of what we were saying. There's a drive that's missing from society. That you shake people's hands sometimes, and you're like, you can't even shake my hand. You
Yeah.
can't even look me in the eye. Why would I ever trust you? Why would I ever want to, do anything with you if you can't do that one thing that all men gauge other men upon?
Mm-hmm.
You got a 0% chance of me listening to you if you're shouting and screaming at me. You
Yep.
know, like we got to start talking to each other better.
Yeah, and goes back to politics. If you yell at your constituents, do you think they're going to actually listen? No.
And not only that, even as far as Gen X, Gen Z, Millennial, whatever you want to call them, you have to take pride in the importance of what you're doing in your vocation and your job and your family. If you got to work a little harder or a little longer, well, you need to do the best that you can be, and if it's needed, that's what you need to do.
Right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, I got a question for you going with all that of what we just talked about, and that is, so what do you think is wrong, like overall with our country? How could we, us three even, how could we make it better?
Well, it's a lot to do with what Derek said about common ground. First off, we're all Americans. We're all, American in the United States of America, the greatest country in the world. Sometimes you kind of wonder what other countries think about us, but you can't take away what this country has become from the time Plymouth, the first settlers hit Plymouth Rock. But there is a lot more common ground than uncommon ground here, and there's just got to be some way to focus on the common things and then work the uncommon things upon. Can't we all just get along? We can agree to disagree. There's nothing wrong with that. But like you said, if you're going to yell and scream at me in my face, I'm tuning you out from the moment you start.
Yeah. Well, he and I talked about this our very first podcast, and I said, I remember after 9/11, it was horrible, and it broke. It almost broke the spirit of America in some ways, but it was the 2 weeks after.
It unified America too.
There was flags on everybody's mailbox, everybody's front doorstep. People were, just together.
Yeah.
And I know Reagan said this about, the only thing that would bring us all together is an outside force, basically, and it just seems like that is like going to be unobtainable because there's so many labels and people have so many different I'm this, I'm that, you're this, you're that we don't see that because our rage won't even let you finish a conversation about what the problem is in the first place because I'm already trying to retaliate with what I have in my mind.
But you're right. At 9/11, we had a focused goal. All Americans had a goal focused on what happened. They weren't worried about what their neighbors were doing. They were worried about how did this happen and where did this come from. My own opinion, do I believe that there's some sort of a threat here now? I do. And God forbid something happen in this country. But like you said, it's going to take Americans, true red-blooded Americans, focusing together on a common goal to address situations in the country.
But me personally, I used to get mad if someone didn't agree with me or didn't see things the way I see them. But the older I've gotten, the more I've come to terms with, you can't change anybody. You can only change yourself. And in doing that, you can either make yourself better or make yourself worse. And so I've just chosen to make myself better every day, trying to be better than I was the day before. Yeah. And that's all you really can do, knowing the circumstances of the country and the world, and just be the best dad, the best husband, the best friend.
And there's times when we all fall down at that too. But if you fall down, you get back up. Back up and get on that horse again. It's just, absolutely refuse to accept defeat.
Yeah.
Whether it's a relationship, whether it's career, being a dad, being an uncle, whatever.
So don't quit and do the best you can with what you got in the moment.
That's right.
I'm seeing.
You're on that one tonight, boy.
I'm seeing a pattern,
on that
man.
one tonight.
I'm seeing a pattern. So, how have you dealt with the hard times in your life? What is something that you have done?
I would say introspection, looking in, what did I do that could have been part of this, and being honest with yourself. Because again, like I said, we all make mistakes, we all fall down, we all have regrets. And a lot of times those tend to stick out a whole lot more than the good times.
They always say, one will erase 1,000 attaboys. Mm-hmm. And it's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you found a hobby that helps you out with that?
Yeah, well, that's the other part is obviously anyone who knows me knows I'm an avid hunter and avid fisherman. And just the outdoors and the wildlife. We were talking about this earlier. I've got a little camp up in about 3 hours from here, and just the solace and the solitude of getting away. Wildlife management, I enjoy that more than I could, trophy monster buck or hog or turkey is not as important to me as just it allows you to think when you're out there by yourself and enjoy nature's beauty and realize something greater than us created this.
Yeah, I like getting off the four-wheeler and walking game trails, and it's amazing too. I tell people that they're like, man, you're always in the woods during the wintertime. I'm like, for me, my work is slow during that time of year, so I reconnect with nature.
Yeah.
You smell animals, you hear animals, you see animal signs everywhere. You see, prints in the sand or the dirt or whatever, and you can see 30 different tracks in a day and know what type of animal it was, what direction it was going, and why it was going that way.
And again, going back, sharing that, that's another part that I enjoy. Is just like I said, those who worked with me, beside me, and for me in my careers, is I wanted them to know everything and show them what I knew. Is you've got some guys that are just getting into this, wildlife or hunting, and being able to impart to them, because look, from 4 years old, I was in the truck with my dad going to Ramsey Springs from the time deer season opened till it closed, till time squirrel season, till I was old enough to hunt by myself, just chasing squirrels around as a young boy. And so, for someone who's just started this, who may have not lived the type of life that a lot of southern Mississippi boys live, just to impart knowledge to them, explain to them what a rut is, explain to them what a scrape is, what a rub is, what you're looking for, what you're smelling, what is that smell?
A licking branch.
Exactly. Exactly.
But there's a lot of things that you teach people. They understand what you're saying, and they may never use them again, but like you said, that's imparting that knowledge on them to go forward. Whether they use it or not, you've done your part as a human being to kind of make their life a little bit easier as far as that goes.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any trouble? I know that working alongside of you for a good period of time there's a lot of overtime involved, a lot of long hours, a lot of late nights, early mornings, court, all those kind of things. When all that was going on, did you ever experience a time where you had trouble finding balance between?
It was semi-overwhelming, especially whenever I went into narcotics and all the undercover and all the meth labs. Now, that's the other part of that is I was going through a divorce too. So that was, for lack of a better term, my escape from reality. It was not uncommon for me to go to work at 8 o'clock on Friday morning and start hitting meth labs and not get home till Tuesday afternoon, just from meth lab to cleanup crew. And you're right, the overtime that was when you're a young man, and you can work like that, and you're really blocking something out. Is it healthy? It's not healthy. It's not the way to answer that. And I'm not saying that I necessarily did it the right way. But
you put your head down and pull the sled. And
that's it. Load the wagon. Don't worry about the mule, son. Just load the wagon.
That's right. So what are some steps that you took to find that balance later on?
The fact that my wife, my current wife, kind of helped to slow me down and set me down and said, look, you need it. She's in law enforcement too. You both know her. And she knew back then that the hours, that crazy hours I was working, and you need to slow down. You need to spend some time with your kids. You need to,
go on the boat.
Yeah, be around, and it, I did not do a whole lot of hunting during that time, and I don't know if it was psychologically. Maybe I'm the bad guy. I'm I'm on the hunt right now.
Yeah.
I think that could have been part of it, but there was a while in my life to where I did a little offshore fishing, but I really wasn't that back into nature and wildlife. But once slowing down, backing it down a level, backing it down a notch, and she was a big part of that. She really was getting me slowed down.
Like kind of like recentering you and slowing you down. And they always say, stop and smell the roses, but if you're going 100 miles an hour, you don't care about no roses, and
Nope. I didn't know what that was till I met my current wife. I didn't know how happy I could be. How that missing piece that wasn't ever there when it gets plugged in and you have it, how much of a difference that can make.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that.
yeah, and having that support too, because some people in relationships, the other half doesn't understand the importance of you getting out in nature and what that does for you spiritually
and she is so supportive. She she knows I'm headed north on Friday afternoon, and I'll see you Sunday. But it's my solitude, and it doesn't hurt for couples. You can't be underneath each other all the time.
Right.
There's no way you can be underneath each other. You've got to have your own. She's got the Mardi Gras stuff and the girly stuff, and I've got the guy stuff, and then there's things that we do together too. So
Now, there's some stuff you hadn't mentioned here that I'm going to bring on up.
Uh-oh.
That is, where did you learn how to cook? Because I know you love to do it, bud.
well,
Chef Curtis.
and I tell people that jokingly, but I'm really not joking. I learned in my first marriage. First off, I grew up with a mother that there's breakfast every morning, there's lunch, and we had supper. I didn't cook, but my first marriage, come home that first evening, and there was some half-cooked spaghetti noodles and some cold ragu with nothing, just ragu sauce that hadn't even been heated up in the pan. And I learned that if I didn't teach myself how to cook, I would starve to death. And finding what my kids liked and getting them to eat something. How kids can be finicky. We call it bite negotiations. Yeah. How many more bites, Dad? Well, if you find something they really like that's semi-healthy, they'll eat. My kids love broccoli. You'd never think a kid loved broccoli. I cook broccoli 300 different ways because they love to eat broccoli. So fast forward to that, it's just a passion, another passion of mine. And the fact that, honestly, I appreciate you saying that, because that is one of my big passions also, is taking something and making something completely different that you've never tried before.
And that goes hand in hand with hunting.
Yeah.
And you're eating the leanest, cleanest meat you can get your hands on.
Yep. I process all my own game for that reason. I make my own mixes, the sausage mix or the Italian or bratwurst or burger or bacon burger. I do it all myself, and it's just another therapeutic one thing. I've got all the stuff to do it, and my wife knows when I get in there,
it's on.
I'm going to town. I'm going to do something different. The latest one was the bratwurst. I made some brats that were amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing, and most people don't realize, man, $1.50, maybe $2, depending on what kind of bullet you like to shoot. 40 to 60 pounds of meat. Mm-hmm. But you got to have that knowledge. You got to be willing to go sit in the rain. You got to be willing to deal with bugs. You got to be willing to step over snakes and climb trees. And
make no mistake, that $1.50 bullet. But if I was to figure up how much per pound that wild game meat costs,
all the fuel.
That's what I'm saying. You fuel, membership dues, seed, fertilizer. If
backpack full of potted meat.
It's like driving that Jeep. It's miles per gallon, not miles per gallon.
My wife would kill me if we figured out how much per pound that stuff cost me.
But it is very. It definitely goes hand in hand with the hunting. This is the cooking part, and I mean, what better way? I mean, we're humans. We got to eat.
Yeah.
So you might as well be good at both of those.
Yeah.
Because one day the power is going to go out, and it's going to be pretty wild around.
That's a scary thing that you said that, and we've had these discussions before. The terror that if there was something like an EMP, the grid the grid goes off. I'm headed north. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm getting away from as much population as possible, just because people are. You see the movies about it, but in reality, would that really happen?
Yeah. Well, I watched a podcast the other day, and it was Andy, and he said, we're 9 meals away, because most Americans, may have some, dry food or pasta or something like that, but you're really 9 full meals away of not having anything to eat if that were to happen.
And I would say over the past 2 or 3 years, that probably meal count has probably went down.
Yeah.
If you went in a grocery store lately to buy groceries and just go into a Walmart, I used to love to go to Walmart and go grocery shopping. My wife couldn't stand it. I'd go by myself, happy as I could be. But you go to a grocery store today versus a couple of years ago, it will hurt your feelings. The little bit of stuff you come out with the money that just got sucked out of your bank account for it.
And I was thinking about this earlier today. We've been dealing with inflation basically since COVID. We've been dealing with having to pay more for less. And just going to the grocery store now, my wife got those little toaster strudels. You know how small those things are now? Mm-hmm. It used to be pretty big, Mm-hmm. But the thing is people don't realize that not only are you paying more for all those items, but you're paying more taxes for less as well. Mm-hmm. So it's a double whammy. Everywhere you look, it's just like pouring salt in the wound. And that's why I enjoy hunting, because that's your way to kind of get back at that in some way, shape, or form. The reason why we're called the Learn Alpha Podcast is we all learn a lot of those traits from other people, not just our dads, not just our uncles, but Benjamin Franklin and some of those guys, Thomas Jefferson, they use that term learned men, right? Mm-hmm. And they used to fox hunt and hound with hounds and things like that. And that's where that term learned comes from. They wanted to go out and have everybody in their community and people that were associated with them partake into that for those reasons. If you put that in perspective, there wasn't McDonald's. That's how they gathered all those things back then.
You couldn't pull up a YouTube video and to see how to do something. There was no how to change oil. No, there wasn't none of that back then.
And that's why they were firm believers in that. And you read about that a lot, because what got me on that whole subject was it's been 2 months or so, but I read an article that said that in 2022, there was only like 2.1 million men in the United States had a hunting license out of 365 million people.
They must all live in Ward Bayou.
That's mind-blowing. There's a lot of outlaws and a lot of people that hunt on their own property that never get a hunting license, but 2.1 out of 365 million people.
Mm-hmm. That's again, that 2.1 can't feed 365 million.
Well, that's why I feel like it's so important, with our podcast here and some of the messages that we're trying to get out to people. We're interviewing different people like yourself, and so you can tell us how you learned how to be where you are and the lessons that you learned along the way. But the big thing is self-reliance, right? Like learning how to do something. It doesn't have to be hunting. It can be fishing, learning how to fix your car, learning how to do something that you're not going to depend on everybody else to do.
And there's nothing wrong with the technologies available for you to learn how to change the oil in your car or learn how to change a tire, because there are a lot of people out there in this world today that that's a skill set that they don't have, that they've never been shown. Their dad never showed them how to pull the heads off of an engine and take them to Big Ten machine shop and have them work. That's the stuff that as a kid I grew up doing, and I hated it. In my mind, giving him tools and just but if it wasn't for the things that I learned from him, and I wouldn't. There's no way I would have skill set that I could today to survive. Like you said, it's something that's gone by the wayside because everybody wants to take something to somebody and get someone else to do it for them.
It's funny. I come home, my wife's like, "You bought another sharpening stone? Is that another knife sharpener? What do you need another shovel for? What do you need another axe for?" I'm like, well, I got to have a 28-inch, a 36. They all do different things. And my motto for my academy class was, when the time to perform has come, the time to prepare has passed. That's what I live by. If you don't have it today, you might not be able to get it tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And I don't think enough people look at life that way, because if something were to happen like an EMP or a solar flare, just using it as an example, that's it. Whenever it happens, that's it. Yeah. There's nothing after that you can't start your car, you can't go to McDonald's, you can't. Remember after Katrina, I remember driving when I finally found a gas station that was open in Ocean Springs. I was driving down Highway 90. McDonald's had no glass in the front of it. Burger King had no glass in the front of it. And people were pulling in there like they were going to be open.
Yeah.
You know?
And getting mad when they weren't.
Yeah, like, oh, I can't believe this. I'm like, bro, did you see the line at Winn-Dixie? There was like 400 people, you know, that could go in and buy like 8 items a piece.
It happened at after Hurricane George in '98. I was in Pascagoula. I went over there to escort a Red Cross van from Wayne Lee's to the Van Cleve shelter. And when Perry Wayne fired the lights up at the front of Wayne Lee's, we almost had a riot. I mean, I'm talking breaking out shotguns, screaming for backup, getting Pascagoula there, because I was a one-man band by myself, and there was suddenly 400 people in the parking lot trying to get in Wayne Lee's.
That's what worries me about, but being on that teeter, you know, of society. It just, because you would think, especially like we talked about earlier, is coming together and finding those common things, but I just don't see that being.
And I truly believe, like a 9/11, like you alluded to, I think it's going to take something happening to the United States of America. God forbid it does, but I think that will be a uniter for the United States. Well, it could go one or two ways.
Yeah. Well, we're a country with a short memory, so that's the issue. You know, we have come together before. We've come together several times in the history of America, but our history is only a couple hundred years old. You know, when you go overseas, like you've been, I've been, they talk about history like it was yesterday and it's 2,000 years ago. You know, and so I think our although we're ahead in technology in a lot of cases, I think we still have a lot of maturing to do as a country.
I think it goes to comfort, right? You said a while back, the most dangerous part is being in the calm of the storm, you know, because you're not worried about anything.
That's right.
You know, and you get complacent and you don't look at things the way you actually should. You know, I don't know. I just wish that something good would happen in America. Not, you know.
Oh yeah, I do too. But when you look at, like you said, we do have a short memory. 9/11 was not that long ago in reality. Hurricane Katrina was not that long ago in reality.
Yep. And all these people build right back, and, you know, start over again. It's funny. They spent $1.4 million in like a month and a half of dredging in New Jersey, and I saw this yesterday. 2 storms came through, wiped all the sand dunes out in front of the houses in like 3 days. You know, you live on the beach, man. That's what happens.
Yeah, that's part of it.
It's called nature. Yeah. That's what happens. What are you looking forward to, man, going forward?
I would say retirement, but I've already done that. Life, really, just, you know, being successful. Obviously, I would like to eventually retire and really retire, but
you think you could do that?
I don't know, because you're both cops. I mean, what happens to cops when they retire and don't do anything? What happened to Carl Williamson? What happened to Bud Polifrone? You know, all my old captains. There's one that's still around, and he's still working today. To this day, Jimmy McAnally's still getting up and works for Troy Ross for Board of Supervisors. So, yeah, truly retire, no. You may see me in Lowe's handing out plumbing fittings one day. Who knows, 3 days a week or something, you know. But I'm not going to slow down. I told people that, you know, I'll work till lunchtime whenever y'all put me in the ground. It's just the way I was raised. It's just who I am.
Is there any place you want to go, anything big on your list that you want to hit before you check out?
Man, I'll tell you what. I got to go to one 2 Christmases ago, and we left here the day after Christmas and drove to Estes Park, Colorado, Rocky Mountain National Park. We was a mile from the main entrance. And don't get me wrong, I'd never been to the Rockies, so I've seen the Smokies as a kid so many times, and Gatlinburg and all that. But to see the Rockies at Christmas time, New Year's time with the snow, but the drive itself, you know, I've flown over those flyover states so many times, but to leave here and make it to, you know, Topeka, Kansas, or, you know, and to stop, or Tulsa, Oklahoma, to stop in Tulsa, Oklahoma the first night, and then to drive through Kansas, I mean, it was just the drive alone, just to see those vast plains, and that was one. I mean, I've been to Europe, been all over Europe whenever I was stationed there. I've always dreamt of going to Alaska, but everybody I know that's ever been stationed in Alaska almost all of them end up retiring and moving back because of the wildlife and because of,
Yeah.
It's a place to go and visit, not a place to go and live forever,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because you're out there, and the wildlife up there is a lot different. The megafauna up there is big.
I thought I knew what a big deer was until I went to North Dakota and saw some of the muleys there, and that was ridiculous. I was genuinely afraid that they were going to take out my car.
Well, I'll tell you what was shocking. When we went to Colorado, we drove up to Cheyenne's 45 minutes or so north, so we drove up to Cheyenne and then across to Laramie, made kind of a big triangle. But as you cross over Fort Collins, the Colorado border there, Wyoming border, there's a buffalo ranch there, and they do guided tours. Dude, have you ever stood beside a adult male buffalo?
No, but I can only imagine.
I took my son to Yellowstone when he was 8, and we walked out on this big open plain, and we walked up on this hill. It wasn't a mountain; it was just a little hill. And when we crested that hill, there was like 5 or 6 of them laying directly on the backside of that hill. And when we came over that hill, they all stood up, and I'm 6'5", and I was like, just the size, and they stink really bad, like really bad. Like you can smell them for a mile away. But when those things stood up, my son just looked at me. He's like, "Dad, we gotta go."
Yeah, this is not the place for me.
Yeah,
that's a massive American animal, that's for sure.
And moose are the same way, and elk. I mean, you see an elk standing there bigger than a car.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you coming on today, man.
Well, I enjoyed it. I do appreciate y'all inviting me on, and hopefully I've imparted something that somebody learned from. That's all you can do is, that saying knowledge is power. You got to teach them.
Yep.
One guy tried to teach him how to pull through a gate at the task force one time, and he ended up tearing half the gate off.
Oh my God, I'm never going to live that down.
He got a plaque.
He's got red hair?
Yeah.
He's got red hair?
He got a plaque, and it was a piece of that broken gate with a gold plaque on it.
I
Congratulations.
wonder who that could be.
I have no idea.
Curtis, man, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
You guys please like and subscribe. We'll see you next week. Thank you.